275 factory horsepower is a massive number anywhere, but when you're talking about holding that peak output at 10,000 feet of elevation, the 2027 Polaris RZR Pro R Boost becomes the most significant launch we have seen for Colorado riders in years. It is one thing to have power at sea level. It is an entirely different game when you are climbing high-altitude passes in the Rockies.
That is the real headline for us. Usually as you climb, you feel that engine start to struggle, but Polaris is claiming this machine maintains its full 275 horsepower all the way up to that 10,000-foot mark. For a high-performance UTV, that is a game changer for anyone living in Denver or heading up to the high country.
You're listening to G-Force's Wide Open, the Colorado Powersports podcast. Road, trail, track, snow, and water. Today we are breaking down the upcoming arrival of the 2027 Polaris RZR Pro R Boost. We are looking at the Ultimate and the Ultra trims and deciding whether 2 seats or 4 seats makes the most sense for the local terrain.
And it is important to clarify right at the start that this is not just a standard Pro R with a turbo bolted on as an afterthought. Polaris really went back to the drawing board for the 2027 model year. They have re-engineered the powertrain, the cooling, the clutching, and the entire driveline to support that massive increase in torque and heat.
Exactly, because 275 horsepower creates a lot of stress. The heart of it is that ProStar Fury 2.0-liter turbo engine. You get that peak horsepower at 7,000 RPM, but the torque is what really stands out to me. We are talking 215 pound-feet of torque at just 4,000 RPM. In a naturally aspirated engine, you are usually waiting much longer to feel that pull.
That low-end torque is vital for the kind of riding we do. Think about technical climbs or coming out of a tight corner. You want that immediate response. And for our listeners who might not know the science behind it, a naturally aspirated engine typically loses about 3% of its power for every 1,000 feet of elevation gain. If you are riding at 10,000 feet, a standard engine has effectively lost 30% of its lung capacity. The turbo on this Pro R Boost compensates for that thin air, essentially keeping the engine breathing like it is at sea level.
Which means when you're at the top of a pass, you still have the full 275 horses available. But all that power generates serious heat. Polaris says the powertrain is designed to maintain performance even in ambient temperatures up to 115 degrees. They did this with a dual radiator setup that is quite clever. There is a rear-mounted engine radiator that gets fed by a new roof scoop, which keeps that engine heat behind the cab instead of letting it soak into the seats.
The cooling side is impressive. You have that rear radiator for the engine, but then there is a separate front radiator dedicated specifically to the turbo and the transmission cooling circuit. It keeps the intake charge cool and stabilizes the drivetrain temperatures. If you have ever been in a high horsepower machine on a hot July afternoon in the dunes or on a slow, dusty trail, you know how uncomfortable that cab heat can get. Moving the main radiator to the back is a huge win for passenger comfort.
And let's talk about the driveline, because you can't just put that much power through a standard belt and expect it to live. They have moved to a new high-capacity clutching system with a 48 curved fin design. It uses a larger belt and a high-flow CVT that is designed to move a massive amount of air. The transmission itself is actively cooled, and they have strengthened the half shafts and upgraded the front drive system to handle the 215 pound-feet of torque without breaking a sweat.
It feels like a very balanced package from an engineering standpoint. They didn't just chase a vanity number, they built the vehicle to survive that number. Now, when buyers are looking at G-Force's allocation, they have to choose between 2 main trims, the Ultimate and the Ultra. The Ultimate is already a high-spec machine. It features desert-tuned dynamic suspension, and for 2027, it has improved G-out protection and rear bump control. It is designed to handle those sudden hard compressions where you might otherwise bottom out.
But the Ultra trim is where things get really technical. It features the Dynamics DVS system with active sway bar links. This is race program technology that has made its way onto a production RZR. These links can adjust up to 200 times per second. To put it simply, the system can electronically stiffen the sway bars when you are cornering fast to keep the car flat, but it can soften them instantly when you hit rough terrain or rocks to give you maximum articulation. It is doing all that math for you in real time.
It is fascinating because it solves the age-old compromise in off-roading. Usually a stiff sway bar is great for speed but terrible for comfort and crawling. An active system like Dynamix DVS gives you both. The Ultra also gets some aesthetic and weight-saving upgrades like a carbon fiber hood and carbon fiber seat bezels. You get an MPI GT steering wheel and 32-inch BF Goodrich tires, along with paint and graphics that you won't see on the other models.
Regardless of which one you pick, the technology inside the cab is identical. Both the Ultimate and Ultra come with that massive 10.4-inch Ride Command touchscreen. It has 3D mapping, group ride, and all the connected vehicle info you could want. Plus, the Rockford Fosgate Stage 4 audio is standard, and for those cold Colorado mornings, you have heated seats, which are also ventilated for the summer. And for the tech-savvy riders, Polaris has planned Apple CarPlay compatibility via a future software update.
That connectivity is becoming such a big part of the riding experience. Now, the big decision for most buyers is whether to go with the 2-seat or the 4-seat configuration. Both trims offer both options. The 2-seat model is noticeably shorter, which makes it more maneuverable on those tighter mountain trails and definitely easier to trailer. It carries a 14.7-gallon fuel tank.
The 4-passenger version, on the other hand, is the choice for anyone who wants to bring the family or a group of friends along. It also has a larger 17.4-gallon fuel tank to help compensate for the extra weight and keep the range competitive. If you are doing long group rides or multi-day adventures, that extra fuel capacity is a nice safety net.
So, looking at the lineup, how do we break down the recommendations for someone calling into G-Force? If you are a performance-focused driver who mostly rides with one passenger and you want the absolute pinnacle of handling, the 2-seat Ultra is the obvious choice. That Dynamix DVS system is the best suspension tech Polaris offers.
And if you have a family or a group that always rides together, you have to look at the 4-seat options. Whether you go Ultimate or Ultra there probably depends on how much you value those active sway bars and the exclusive carbon fiber bits. If you want that 275 horsepower side-by-side, but you don't feel like you need every single Ultra upgrade, the Ultimate is a powerhouse. You still get the same engine and the desert-tuned Dynamix suspension.
But if you are the type of rider who wants the most advanced suspension ever put in a UTV and you want that exclusive look, the Ultra is the one you wait for. The 2027 Polaris RZR Pro R-Boost is the new king of the mountain, especially given its performance at altitude.
It is important to be realistic about the timeline and the availability here. The lineup starts at an MSRP of $49,999, which doesn't include destination, setup, taxes, or other fees, and individual dealer pricing can vary. Polaris has stated that shipments to dealers are expected to begin in November 2026. G-Force Powersports already has several units on the way in both Ultimate and Ultra trims, across 2-seat and 4-seat configurations, but these are high-demand machines and allocation is limited.
If this is the machine you want for the 2027 season, you really need to be proactive. These don't tend to sit on the floor for long once they arrive, and securing your spot in the allocation is the best way to ensure you aren't waiting until the middle of next summer to get out on the trails.
It is a lot of machine, but for the serious Rocky Mountain rider, that 275 horsepower that doesn't quit at 10,000 feet is hard to ignore. Call G-Force Powersports at 303-238-4303, visit gforcepowersports.com, or stop by 7700 West Colfax Avenue in Lakewood, Colorado. Ask specifically about the incoming 2027 Polaris RZR Pro R Boost Ultimate and Ultra allocation and how to secure the 2-seat or 4-seat configuration you want.
It is going to be an exciting winter when these start landing. The level of engineering Polaris has poured into the cooling and the driveline shows they are serious about making this power usable, not just impressive on a spec sheet. Whether you are hitting the dunes or the high country trails, this is the new benchmark for a high-performance UTV.
This has been G-Force's Wide Open. Road, trail, track, snow, and water. We'll see you on the next one.